Hi folks, it's time for another episode of Star Trek Discovery Canon Eggs from the All Good Things Star Trek podcast. My name is Barry Wallace. I'm the co-host of that show. Thanks for joining us for episode 7 of Star Trek Discovery called Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad. It's another Harry Mudd episode. There's not a whole lot in this episode, but we'll get right to them. The first one was a big one. It's really almost too big to go into on the podcast, but when the show first opened, you saw a star chart that Michael Burnham was looking at. Also was one in Captain Lorca's office, his ready room. Had a lot of different stars and systems and clusters and nebula named that have been mentioned in Star Trek before. You can see again we mentioned before the Mempa sector. Those kind of things. Rura Penthe was listed, or the Azure Nebula, all those sort of things. I'm not going to listen to all. There's great things. If you're interested in maps and fantasy charts and things like that, as I am, go to Memory Alpha, go to the setting or the page for this episode, and it lists all of them there. So you can take a look at them at your leisure. I thought it was fascinating. Maybe you will too. We saw Harry Mudd when he first came on board the Discovery. He was wearing a helmet, a space helmet of some kind, and it had antenna on top of it. Apparently, it's an Andorian helmet. Kind of an Easter egg there. I guess which what they have to wear if you have antennas sticking out of the top of your head. Also, a name drop for Alpha Centauri. Alpha Centauri is the closest star system to Earth. In real life and in the Star Trek universe. We've heard it mentioned before as where Zefram Cochrane actually visited for a while. Of course, he was from Earth on Star Trek First Contact. We saw him there. Next, we saw him chronologically in the original series episode Metamorphosis. But according to the story there, he went to Alpha Centauri and stayed there for a while. Anyway, a name drop of that world. There's a mention of the matter or the materials that was used to blow up the Discovery. One of the 53 odd times was a combination of Anicium and Yurium. While these are, as far as I can tell, imaginary substances, they were used once before in combination in the TNG episode Night Terrors. One of the captain of one of the ships in that episode used it to bring those substances together to get the ship out of the Tychon's rift that they were in. So that substance has been used before. Let's see, what else do we have? We mentioned a Betazoid. First time that Beta Z or Betazoids have been mentioned on Star Trek Discovery. So that was the bank that Harry Mudd had broken into. So Counselor Troy's world has a mention there. Like I said, not a whole lot in this episode. Let's talk a little bit about Stella Mudd. We saw Stella finally in the flesh as a real live person at the end of this episode. Of course, we remember the android duplicate of Stella that was made in iMudd from the original series. She was that android that Harry Mudd created so that he could tell her to shut up, and she would, which apparently 10 years later, she never does in Harry's life once we see him in the original series. And then at the end of the episode, they created 500 of them to torment Harry while he served out his exile on the android world. So we see Stella Mudd for real in this episode, which is interesting. Let's see. The only other couple of things that I have to mention on this one, there was more of a callback to another episode. You may remember from the Next Generation, an episode called Cause and Effect, which was very similar to this. The Enterprise was caught in a time loop. It kept being destroyed and was sent back another 30 minutes or so, or however long in time, and had kept repeating the same amount of time over and over. So very plot-wise, very similar to that episode, and you may have been reminded of that. It's a great episode. If you don't remember it, go back and watch it. And finally, this is the last thing that I was able to find. There's an interesting little, one of the navigators or the communications officer on the bridge of the Discovery. This guy is the one that Mudd threatened. He said, "Hey, random communication guy, I'm going to kill you with this dark matter sphere thing." And that really is close to the camera, isn't it? This dark matter sphere thing. And he was also in a previous episode, was the one that piloted the shuttle that took the cast members over to the ship. Now I've forgotten the name. Anyway, the ship in the second or third episode that was trying to use the spore drive. Anyway, he's not really listed in the cast as having a name, but according to a couple of sources that I found, his name is either R. Bryce or Randy Bryce, junior grade, lieutenant junior grade. Well, I looked up that name just to see if there was another connection, and there's a character named Randy Bryce that is in the animated series. She is in the animated series episode called Eye of the Beholder. She was a female crew member of the USS Ariel. So it's interesting if they both have the same name. Could they be the same character? I guess it's possible. Maybe they're brother and sister. Maybe they has no relation to one another. But there are two characters named R. Bryce or Randy Bryce in the Star Trek universe. They're both human. One's male, one's female. Who knows? So that's pretty much it for Canon Eggs on this episode. If you have any others that you saw and I haven't seen, then I think you should let us know. Otherwise, thanks a lot, folks, and we'll see you next time on Star Trek Discovery Canon Eggs. You can get in touch with us at agtpod@gmail.com, and our Twitter and Facebook and YouTube are agtpod as well. And then finally, go to allgoodthings.podbean.com to see some of our past podcast episodes. Thanks a lot, folks.